Hi everyone, this is Jason Burack of Wall Street for Main Street. Today I'm joined by Mo Dawoud. We used to do these podcasts, Mo, a lot, a couple times a month. You and me would just do market reviews and things like that. So it's good to, get back in the swing of things and just have a podcast with you and me talking about markets and things like that.
Yeah, it's been a while. We both went our own way, then did our own stuff in regard to podcasts, and you're doing your Welcome to Dystopia podcast as well. So it's been a while.
Yeah, the Welcome to Dystopia show, I think that's pretty funny. Our shows are long, which some of our listeners don't like. I'm trying to mix in some short monologue analysis videos there. So we're going to try to, appease not necessarily everyone, but offer a little bit of something for different types of folks. Anyways, though, Mo, before we get started here talking about, today's podcast and the topics and maybe going over our report that we issued in December 2015, January 2016, just give you guys a progress report of how well or bad things are going. Mo Dawoud and I just want to, a couple weeks ago, we had a phone call with a angel investor and things went really well for the most part. He loved our business plan. He said we can really implement this if we get the money to actually build a successful educational technology company, but he wants us to go and bring in a more experienced CEO. So, in order to do that, I think, we're going to obviously have to offer equity because we don't have the money right now to offer a more experienced CEO salary. But after the money's raised, the CEO could then get, in addition to their equity position, they would also get a salary then and stock options and things like that as we transition from an LLC to a C corporation. Anyways, though, Mo, what type of skills do you think we need from our future CEO?
So for future CEOs, we're looking for people that have management experience and marketing experience because we need someone that knows how to sell our ideas and try to get advertising and sponsors and other uh, business partners into Wall Street for Main Street. So I think those two are the most important thing we're looking for in a CEO.
Yeah, and we want someone, who has experience managing people, has experience hiring and firing people, figuring out the different organizations of a company and things like that. We have a general idea, obviously, in our business plan of these things, but we need someone who actually has experience executing day-to-day business operations, scaling things up, and any of the things we may have missed, obviously Mo Dawoud and I are going to be involved in the day-to-day operations, but, we'll be helping the CEO once we hire one, hopefully in the next 6 months of bringing them in, and we're going to help, fill in the holes for any of our business plan. A good CEO would do that, and, we'd work as a team. We don't want someone fully combative. We want someone, who's a strong, independent leader, good leader, and also, works well within a team framework.
Yeah, so that's what we're working on right now. Other than doing the podcast, we're looking for a good CEO that will help us execute our business plan right now. Uh,
Yep.
so other than that, let's just get here. I want to talk about the report that we put out at the beginning of the year, which was the 2015 review and the 2016 outlook report. In that report, for people that haven't read it yet, we had quite a few stock picks that we suggested to people to research and look into. And a lot of them have done very well so far this year, with a few of them already doubled in price almost.
Yeah, Mo, there was different degrees of stock picks there. We had the gold stocks. This was before the gold stock rally had actually really started. We started writing the report in November and December. We started writing it, talking about there was going to be a rally in 2016 in gold and silver stocks and also in oil stocks. Obviously we didn't know the exact timing, but we expected rallies in all three. Those were our strongest confidence levels. We've also, I also said there was bargains in technology in 3D printing stocks. 3D Systems had gotten down as cheap as $7 a share. It was trading at around only 2 times revenues, which for a technology stock is extremely cheap. Anyways, though, it's already up 56% year to date. So that's a really good gainer if you got that. Stratasys has similar returns. The thing about value investing, Mo, is expectations don't have to be drastically exceeded for value investing. all that has to happen is the bar has to be lowered. So you have a company where, the Wall Street had ridiculous expectation for revenue growth and earnings growth and things like that. The market was paying ridiculous multiples at one point. The stock just goes down and down and down. The trend traders just keep shorting and shorting it because they draw a line in the stock chart. Eventually, at some point, though, you look at the fundamentals of the business and you say, well, wait a second, the stock can't go to zero. They're still making pretty good revenue. They're still eking out a profit, right? Even though revenue is falling, their revenues are still pretty good compared to, a company where the market's acting like they're going to go bankrupt. So, we have a situation in that industry where there's still growth, but the market just didn't like how growth was slowing. So anyway, though, it got down to a ridiculous point. And that's the thing about value investing. You can't time your purchases all at once, but sentiment was just so negative, and the fundamentals of the company, they were still generating revenue and cash flow and, eking out some earnings here or there. So they weren't totally awful. And that this is how value investing in the long term works for companies like that. Little in the resource industry, it's different because a lot of the miners, Mo, can use a lot of debt, and then it's dangerous. You run bankruptcy risks and things like that. So you obviously want to avoid companies that have too much debt on their balance sheet. Otherwise, if the cycle turns around the resource industry, then you're risking the company's not going to survive the cycle becoming from bear market to bull market again.
And yeah, so I mean, 3D printing is one of the few industry within the technology industry that on a rebound. And the technology industry as a whole is pretty overvalued. If you look at the big tech stock companies like Amazon or Netflix and the other ones. So yeah, 3D printing was a good call by you. And for the resource stock, it's on a rebound, especially in the gold and silver industry, mainly because the price obviously it's been going up. But the company that we picked, the business model is very solid, and the fundamentals of the company is solid as well. Companies like Silver Wheaton that we recommended is up almost 100% so far this year, and that's their streaming companies. Royal Gold is up almost 70%. Sandstorm Gold is up almost $1. So those three resource stocks that we recommended in our report are doing well so far.
Yeah, and obviously, Mo, other gold and silver miners have gone up a lot too. But when we wrote this report, gold and silver had not started to necessarily go up a lot yet, and we're like, well, these companies are going to survive because they have better business models, they don't have as much debt, etc. They have very strong cash flow, etc., etc. Now, obviously, when the metals price is rising, the market tends to get more of a risk appetite. So some of the riskier gold and silver companies have gone up more than, a safer company like Royal Gold or Silver Wheaton or Franco-Nevada or things like that. So it really depends for your investment on your risk tolerance. If you want questions answered like this, if you want to learn how to invest in gold and silver, you can give us an email, wallstreetformainstreet@gmail. We can maybe talk. We do educational consulting sessions. It's $100 an hour is the regular price. If you buy the sessions in bulk, 3 hours or more, we may offer a discount to that. Anyways, though, Mo, we also had a good pick on our trade on Chipotle, on the volatility, with the E. coli scare and things like that. If you read our report, you know what we were talking about. So we have a bunch of winning trades that were in our report, which we gave away for free. I obviously probably could have sold it and made a halfway decent profit on it, but we want you guys to understand the quality and depth of our research. And you know what? This is not spending doing everything full time. So if Mo and I, had our money raised as a hedge fund, if we had 7 figures to manage, we could be doing a portion of that portfolio, doing options trades like that and sending up big winners. I've had for other consulting clients in the past, and also my other analysis of stocks on Seeking Alpha over the many years I've been doing this. I've been doing this since 2000. Well, I've been reading and researching since 2007, but I've been looking at stocks and doing more research since 2009, 2010. So I've had a lot of winners in that. Obviously, with some of the gold and silver stocks, the bear market was bad, but I've had other winners in other industries too.
Yeah, and Chipotle is one of the trades that done well for people that, want to take a little bit more risk and buy a put option on Chipotle. When we recommended it, it was at 522, and it went as low as 413 this year. So if you got a put option, you made good money on that.
Thousands of dollars probably, Mo, if you bought a couple contracts. I mean, 100-point move in a stock on an options trade, you're looking at easily hundreds of % return, easily.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think long term Chipotle will survive this because if history is any indication, most companies survive this kind of stuff. One example was Jack in the Box in the early 90s. They had an E. coli outbreak in 1993, and the stock took a big hit. Sales went down 30%, and it didn't rise until 1995. So it took them a while to recover, but they made it. So
Yep.
I think Chipotle will be okay long term, but right now I think it's a good shorting opportunity for people out there that are looking for something to short.
Yeah, I don't think Chipotle will stay flat because either they're going to turn things around, the stock's going to go a lot higher, or things are going to get a lot worse in the short term before they get better. So I don't really see the stock staying flat. There's a lot of stocks out there like that, guys, that have a lot of volatility that won't stay flat. Obviously some of these larger, boring dividend stocks are pretty. There's not a lot of news that'll move the stock up or down that much, like Johnson and Johnson, unless like a drug fails, one of their biotech drugs or something like that. But in general, a lot of these companies, they don't go up and down all that much. The larger companies, the larger dividend stocks, the bellwethers on the Dow. But some of these other companies, they can have massive volatility. There's a lot of optionality there to trade with long straddles, buying puts and calls at different strike prices on a stock chart. And the beta in some of these names will almost guarantee that the stocks will not stay flat. Anyways, though, guys, I just want to transition now. Well, before that, I would say Mo Dawoud and I, compared to a lot of these guys on Wall Street, who have a degree from a Ivy League school and maybe 1 year of experience at Goldman Sachs or something, compared to us, these guys know nothing. and they're getting many millions of dollars to manage it stupid. So
I mean,
we let our work.
we have a lot of hedge funds that went short on China yuan, and they're getting killed right now. That was a bad idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, the governments are manipulating all the currency markets, Mo. The currency markets are one of the most, besides interest rates and the bond market, the currency markets are probably the most manipulated market. It's an enormous market, but the manipulation there is just insane.
Yeah.
Anyways, Anyways, though, I want to transition now, talk about the global economy. We see so many stories coming out. If you watch CNBC or Bloomberg, they always try to spin things and say, "Oh, the global economy is recovering." They'll pick at the one positive news story when there's tons and tons of negative ones, and they'll say that's why the stock market is rising. Mo, why do you think the stock market hasn't crashed yet?
Well, I think it's due to the central banks. I mean, they're doing their best to keep the stock market from crashing because right now they're doing their wealth effect. They're trying to keep up inflation and keep that tax revenue running coming in so they can fund all these social programs. Because as people know, when you invest, you got to pay taxes, and to keep that tax revenue coming in, and then to fund all the social program, and not just stock market, real estate and other asset class as well, other than commodities. So it's pretty much due to the central bank. If it wasn't for the central bank, no way the Dow would be at 186 right now. Or actually, it's at I'm sorry, 17,660. But almost a month ago, was up around above 1800. So we're still seeing a lot of volatility in the Dow and S&P and other stock market, and I think it's all due to central banks. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of the research reports from the large Wall Street investment banks, and they're telling people to sell the rally in stocks, that they don't believe the stuff now. So it's a sentiment change. We just saw the billionaire Druckenmiller come out and say he thinks the bull market in stocks, in the general stock market, is over. So we're starting to see sentiment turn. Druckenmiller he's a billionaire, worked under George Soros, manages a lot of money. He just put a good chunk of his total net worth in the last 6 months into gold and gold stocks. So there is a lot of money. I've talked about this in other interviews, that there is a lot of money on Wall Street. Money managers are rotating money out of regular stocks and other asset classes. They're going into cash and they're going into gold because they're just worried about all the stupid stuff the central banks are doing. But in general, Mo, I think the global economy, I just don't really see that many positive news stories about the global economy. Maybe things are a little bit better in China than people think. Although, on Zero Hedge, we're seeing, now that there's a there's like empty cargo trains and things like that. Obviously, we know about the empty buildings, but if you talk with people boots on the ground in China, there is a decent amount of commerce in China. So it's tough to know which one's exactly the truth or not. But we know the other stories in the global economy with container ships and so many commodity producers in a lot of financial trouble. And when the commodity prices are low, so many emerging markets and commodity currency countries like Australia, Canada, Norway, they're not going to do well financially.
Yeah, and just look at the retail sector in this country that's suffering right now. The sales is down. We're seeing a lot of stores go bankrupt. We're seeing Walmart, they're starting to contract. The Sport Authority, the retail store, filing for bankruptcy. Other, excuse me, there's also other clothing store that's filing for bankruptcy. So yeah, I mean, the retail is contracting because there's not much discretionary spending for this kind of stuff, because not many people have jobs right now. So no jobs and no
Well,
money to spend.
Well, people, yeah, there's not a lot of people with jobs. And the people, I would add to your point, Mo, that the people with jobs, a lot of them have part-time jobs. So they don't have that high-paying full-time job that gives them savings, that gives them discretionary income. And that's because, Mo, unfortunately, a lot of the economic system in the United States, it's a very sophisticated scheme of inflation and taxes, where basically it seems to me, I don't know about you, Mo, but my bills, like the stuff I need to survive every day, they go basically one direction every year, every couple years. They go up.
Yeah, my rent is going up every year, at least $50, and the rent in this area is like very high, very expensive. Um, the housing market here is overvalued and expensive. It's not crazy as in New York City or in San Francisco, where one bedroom over there is like $2,000, but here it's pretty expensive. So yeah, all my bills is going up. So with inflation, there's less discretionary income coming in, so less money to spend on stuff in Sport Authority or the clothing store or etc.
Yeah, stagflate and lie.
Yep.
And the Chapwood Inflation Index from Ed Bataski, who I had on a while ago talking about that, it says that the annual inflation rate in major cities in the US like Washington, D.C. has been 12% per year for at least the last 4 or 5 years. That's just that, you do that, you do the rule of 72, and in 6 years, your purchasing power has been cut in half at a 12% inflation rate. The rule 72 is the doubling rule. So you take whatever you think the inflation rate is, 12, you divide 72 by 12, and that's 6. So every 6 years, man, your standard of living is being cut in half at a 12% inflation rate. That's just really messed up. There's, unless you have your own business or you're an amazing investor or stock trader or something like that, or you're an amazing real estate investor, or you're making money from a bunch of different places, you're able to grow revenue and you own all these businesses, you're not going to be able to offset that type of inflation rate.
Yeah, and it's people are graduating out of college. I read an article. 50% of them are living with their parents right now, so working part-time job or don't have a job at all. So the economy is it's not doing very well, despite what the mainstream media is saying. And by the way, I'm still getting those catalogs from the government saying that they'll subsidize my first home purchase. So yeah, the government is still trying to pump up the housing market again, just like they did before the 2008 crisis.
But Mo, according to Obama in some of his speeches in the last couple months, anyone's a denier if the economy is not doing well. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist if the economy is not doing well. All this stuff's propaganda now from the Federal Reserve people and from Obama, talking about the economy and stuff like that. The data is just totally corrupted.
Yeah, they're hypocrite. I mean, they took a big part of trying to get people to buy homes before the 2008 crisis, and then when it blew up, they're all blaming the banks for, giving people with no income, no job, uh, mortgages so they can buy a home. Granted, I mean, it is the bank's fault, but the politician should take some of the blame as well.
Well, Mo, sorry to interrupt there. There was the Community Reinvestment Act, which the banks didn't want. So the Community Reinvestment Act, I think, started in the 70s under Jimmy Carter, and then the program got added to it under the Bill Clinton administration, and that forced the banks to give out loans to people who they knew they couldn't pay, and the banks did try to stop that. So it wasn't obviously I'm not I'm not a friend of the banks, as you guys know, but I'm not saying it wasn't all the bank's fault. The politicians did force the banks to give out some of the loans, but Wall Street did make a bunch of money, chopping up those mortgages into derivatives and selling them off and selling them to suckers and things like that, which is what we're seeing now, in the subprime auto loan debt. There's 3 tranches. There's 3 different levels, Mo, of subprime auto loan debt that they're chopping up again into collateralized debt obligations and selling them in different risk levels to pension funds again. It's really unbelievable that that these money managers would buy these pieces of crap investments. I don't know how. Maybe their Wall Street salespeople are taking them to the strip clubs in Las Vegas at the convention so they can get a little action in the champagne room.
Yeah, I don't think they care, honestly. We saw the movie The Big Short. There was a part in the movie where I think it was Steve Carell that said that they're taking all this risk, but it's not like they don't know. They just don't care because they don't care because they know the Federal Reserve. They know the Federal Reserve going to bail them out if something happens. So they're just going to keep on taking risks.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a problem with having a central bank in general. The Minsky hypothesis, the financial instability hypothesis, is that central banks provide stability and protect against total collapse and things like that. Well, central banks create moral hazard. They allow these guys to know that, they'll get a bailout. They won't get totally fired. They won't lose their job. They won't lose all their assets, etc. They won't get sued in their pants off because their firm's protecting them. And they can go and make these bets that they know will blow up, and they'll collect their bonuses, and they don't care if their firm gets a bailout because their firm's going to get saved. Obviously, Lehman Brothers was a sacrificial lamb. I don't know if they'll let another large bank fail because after what happened after Lehman Brothers. So Deutsche Bank is considered one of the worst ones. There's so many other banks that are in trouble. We'll see if they actually let another large bank fail at this point.
Plus, they're all gotten bigger since the 2008 financial crisis. So if one of the bank go bankrupt, that'll be very bad for the economy.
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately, Mo, I think the economy is going to get worse before things get better. So I think, the central bankers, they're going to talk about deflation this and deflation that. And obviously, if the asset prices fall, they'll be screaming deflation even louder. But then that'll give them the justification they need for the next round of quantitative easing programs. But if that doesn't work and the central bankers don't get the type of inflation they want, then maybe they'll eventually probably do what FDR did in 1933.
And what is that?
He devalued the U.S. dollar against gold because they weren't getting the inflation they wanted.
And yet he gets a nice big memorial in D.C. Isn't that nice?
Oh, yeah, FDR is worshipped as a god, but the funny thing is a lot of Americans at that time actually didn't like him. But the progressives, the progressives who were in charge of government schools and all that, they built him monuments and things like that, and they made him a demigod.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's if you look at all the bad stuff the guy did, it's really just amazing. With trying to pack the Supreme Court and all the different crazy work programs and wage and price controls. It was just insane, the stuff FDR did. Herbert Hoover wasn't. His predecessor did basically the same stuff. FDR just magnified a lot of it too. Herbert Hoover's mislabeled as this free market guy. It's a ton of BS. He was a huge
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and if you notice at Nationals games, Mo, that they have Herbert Hoover running around now too. I really hate that they have a guy in a Herbert Hoover costume now running around in the president's race at the Nationals games.
Is he a new addition?
Yeah, they just added him this year.
Oh, okay.
They added Taft. They added Taft last year, and Taft was, this big crony capitalist too. He was involved in the Teddy Roosevelt administration. Teddy Roosevelt was this huge crony capitalist. He went on the progressive bent. Teddy Roosevelt started the progressive era, which was, trust busting and stuff, but it was really just very large crony capitalism and protecting favorite corporations. So, and Taft was one of the biggest corruption guys. In fact, that's the Taft running for the Republican Party that during the presidential election. That was one of the ways the bankers were able to create the third party there with Woodrow Wilson and sneak Woodrow Wilson into the presidency. People didn't realize that the bankers were actually funding all 3 people running. So remember when Teddy Roosevelt created the Bull Moose Party to counter? So the election that year, the reason the Federal Reserve got started after Woodrow Wilson won the election is you had Taft running. Taft running Taft running against Woodrow Wilson, and then you had Teddy Roosevelt split the vote, and that's how Woodrow Wilson snuck in. So there was the three candidates there of Taft, Woodrow Wilson, and Teddy Roosevelt.
Yep, and he went on and created the Federal Reserve for the bankers to help them out.
And the income tax too. People forget, Mo, that the same time the Federal Reserve was created, the income tax was also created.
All right, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yep, two kicks in the groin.
Yeah, it must have sucked to be alive in 1913. I'll tell you that.
Especially if you were a man, Mo, in our age demographic, we would have been drafted. So yeah, and sent off to the trenches.
Yep.
For World War One.
Yep. So let's talk about the global economy, what's happening outside the border of the U.S., especially in South America. A lot of chaos there in South America with Venezuela, a lot of social unrest due to the socialist economy pretty much collapsing. The bread line, there's not enough food, there's not enough toilet papers, and people starving to death, and it's all due to central planning economy by Venezuela and also low oil prices as well.
Yep, this is just bad. They're not even using Keynesian economics, Mo. They're doing worse. They're using full hardcore Marxist Chavistas. Hugo Chavez and his successor Maduro. And the Chavistas that are still there, man, they're corrupt as hell. They've stolen everything. Anyone who was producing anything who didn't want to be a crony capitalist and corrupt in that country, they've stolen from and expropriated. It's a Caracas, Venezuela, supposedly the murder capital of the world now. It's just insane. And, the stories that we're seeing coming out now, Mo, these countries, I would add to that Brazil is also in financial trouble with the debt from Petrobras and the corruption there. The Olympics are coming up, Mo, in a couple months in Brazil. There's probably going to be a lot of riots, maybe protests, maybe violent ones. There's a lot of really upset Brazilians at the corruption there. Even the president of Brazil now is being brought up on impeachment charges. I think China is going to step in, Mo. We've seen news stories start to come out now with the low oil prices that, whether or not the economy is going better than we think in China, that China is still deploying capital in this environment into strategic resource investments. Not only are they accumulating massive amounts of physical gold still, but they've also, we saw this news story on the Financial Times this week, thanks to Luis Camarsano over at Small Gold for sending it to me. Now it looks like, backed by Chinese banks, the largest Chinese gold miner is negotiating with Glencore to buy one of their largest gold mines. So we're seeing that they're being strategic here. China is also in the process, Mo, of buying a pretty large chunk, I think 5% or more, of one of Russia's largest oil producers, Rosneft. We've seen stories in the last month that China is also interested in buying a large chunk of Saudi Arabia's national oil company, Saudi Aramco. And, you brought back Venezuela and Brazil. I think China, we haven't seen news stories on this, but, I'll just extrapolate further based on these news stories. I think China is going to come in and, offer some type of bailout to maybe Venezuela or Brazil, and they're going to want large chunks of either Petrobras or Venezuela. We've seen in the past, after the 2008 crash, China was able, from both Brazil and Russia, in exchange for paying above the spot market, spot price in oil, to get long-term oil contracts. But I think this time, Mo, China is going to actually want ownership in the oil companies in both Venezuela and Brazil as well. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, this is something that they've been doing pretty much since the 2008 financial crisis. They've been investing outside their own border in distressed assets, mostly in commodities and real estate, especially in this country. And so they've been pretty much diversifying their holdings and treasury bonds into other assets to protect themselves. And also they're decreasing their holding in U.S. Treasury because they see what the Federal Reserve is doing. And it's smart. And also they're buying gold and I think maybe one day they're going to try to make their currency, the world reserve currency, in the future and replace the U.S. dollar. And I think in September they're going to be part of the SDR, so they'll be part of the basket of world reserve currencies. So it's nice to be a Chinese billionaire right now because there's a lot of companies out there around the world that need investment and need help, and they have the cash to do it. So.
Yeah, and Mo, you brought up selling of U.S. Treasuries, and I think that's something important. There's really very little countries right now, Mo, that are accumulating U.S. Treasuries, and a lot of that is because the global economy is doing bad and commodity prices are down. A lot of these countries, whether it's China or Russia or Saudi Arabia, they need to sell U.S. Treasuries and go to cash because they need to save their own butts. The people running those governments need to protect their own economies from, lower commodity prices, dropping revenue. They need that cash. So that's why you're seeing a lot of, well, obviously with Saudi Arabia, there's other stories associated with that, with the threatening of releasing the government classified 9/11 papers and things, and then Saudi Arabia threatening to dump all their treasuries, et cetera, et cetera. But there's just financial reasons for a lot of these countries wanting to sell their treasuries because they need the cash to protect their own governments and their own economies.
Yeah, and this is all part of the currency war that's going on right now. People are debasing their own currency, they're printing their own money. But yeah, China is doing a little different game plan than the other country. They're buying assets along with debasing their own currency. So in the long term, China is going to be in a good place.
Yeah, I really like the entrepreneurship in China. I don't like how their government doesn't allow, social media and civil rights and things like
Right.
that. But yeah, I think if they continue to have low taxes for entrepreneurs and allow investment in the country, and they protect people who are building businesses and stuff like that, their economy will adapt faster than other countries' economies.
Right.
So I think the Chinese economy is more resilient maybe than people are getting credit for. I know you had Dan Collins on in the last couple weeks, maybe a month ago, and he was talking about how, the Chinese economy is transitioning from only fully exports, that they're transitioning to more of a consumer economy and things like that, and building new consumer businesses. So I think the Chinese people, besides the last 40 or 50 years that they've had of communism, they have a much larger track record of entrepreneurial activities and inventing things and building businesses and trading on the Silk Road and things like that.
Yep. I mean, the U.S. still has that entrepreneurial spirit, but the government is in the way, so it's unfortunate. Like the Hyperloop. The Hyperloop, idea started by Elon Musk. The first Hyperloop won't even be built here in this country. It's going to be built in Europe, and that is due to regulation. So that's an
Did,
example of why we're struggling to uh, update our infrastructure and struggling to create jobs in this country because the government is making it difficult.
Yamo, and did you also see the news story that just broke this week about the FDA and what they did to e-cigarettes? They just issued like billions of dollars in regulatory requirements that the e-cigarette industry has to comply with now. So you had a situation where, these e-cigarettes, I believe there was less toxins. People were doing studies on them. There was less poisons going into those than regular cigarettes. And it was probably the cigarette companies, right, that sabotaged them. And they're going to buy up these other companies for pennies now because they can't comply with the regulations. It's a great point about U.S. entrepreneurship. I mean, if you're starting an internet-based business, as Mo and I basically want to do, there's not as much regulation for that for the most part. Unless like you're in state of California and you're paying like $5,000 a year or whatever it is, the very high fee for LLC and things like that. Your fees can be high in certain states and other licenses that are required. But building an internet-based business in the U.S. is still your best shot at entrepreneurship right now. But who knows what's coming, Mo, in the future with future regulations to maybe stop that.
Yeah, it just irritates me that like the Hyperloop, the first one won't even be built here. It's going to be in Europe, and Europe already has. I think they already have bullet trains. I'm not sure, but here we're still using like 1950 technology. Uh, Trained, and the rail hasn't been updated in a very long time, and it's controlled by the government, and it's doesn't go very fast. I mean, it's very expensive too. It's cheaper to fly than take a train to New York City. So I mean, the Hyperloop would have been something
Well, we should have
beneficial for our economy.
Well, we should also have bullet trains here already in the U.S. too. So from D.C. to Baltimore, from Las Vegas to L.A., L.A. to San Francisco. I mean, those things should have been built a long time ago. But you have trillions of dollars in capital misallocated from bad central planning. The money went to bankers. The money went to corporations. The money went to special interest groups. The money went to government employees. The money went to people collecting government benefits who probably shouldn't have been collecting the benefits. So there's a bunch of different people who were collecting money over the years who shouldn't have gotten the money. And Mo, you know this since we work, we live here in DC, that, there's tons of government employees that are not really necessary at all.
Now, the government is way too fat. We have a lot of zombie federal employees here in DC, doing pretty much nothing but collecting a paycheck. It's true and it's sad. Um, but going back to what I was saying about the rail, yeah, so it hasn't been updated in a while, so we're missing out on the Hyperloop technology.
Yeah. Well, the U.S. infrastructure, man, there should have been so much money going into U.S. infrastructure. Our bridges and our roads and our tunnels, they're in great disrepair. The U.S. has one of the lowest infrastructure grades now of any country in the world. 50, 80 years ago, we had some of the best infrastructure. And now, things have become in disrepair. We're not repairing it as fast as it breaks down. So it's really sad. But I guess if you go back through history, this happened in the British Empire too. I did an interview many years ago with a couple of years ago, Dominic Frisby, talking about this and the history of entrepreneurship in England. And basically, a lot of the innovation in England stopped around the 1920s and 30s, around World War I and World War II, because they were spending so much money running a welfare state and then also fighting wars. So, and they had all these regulations too. So the automobile industry, as it was becoming, very popular with Henry Ford and those guys, a lot of people, because Britain at that time was still, one of the top countries in the world, people thought it should have happened there, but it didn't, because there were all these rules and regulations preventing entrepreneurship from, creating automobile companies in England. So a lot of those same things happen here in the US, and this is just what happens to an empire at the top. It starts to get complacent, inflation happens, money is wasted, there's too many rules and regulations and taxes, and it's very difficult to get anything done efficiently.
Yeah, and Obama promised high-speed rail when he was elected in 2008, and he promised to spend $1 trillion to implement it, and yet here we are, 8 years later, and he's close to the end of his term, and yet nothing has been done on that. So
Obama also said that your your health insurance wouldn't increase under Obamacare, and that you would be able to pick the same doctor. Have any of his promises that he actually made in public actually come true? I think almost all of them have been total lies, and none of them have come true.
yeah, he hasn't closed Guantanamo Bay like he wanted to. So yeah, he pretty much hasn't done anything, and he's
Yep.
not the only one. All the other candidates pretty much don't do
Yep.
what they promise.
Agreed. They're all hypocrites. The funny thing about Bernie Sanders, right? He's actually talking everyone needs to pay more taxes, so we can offer free education, and we can offer free healthcare and all these other things. Bernie Sanders released his taxes in the last couple weeks, and he was actually making over 200 grand a year in salary, Mo, and guess how much in income taxes he was paying?
13%.
Yeah, but if you're making that much money, aren't you supposed to pay like 35, 40? You're supposed to pay a lot larger chunk.
Yeah, and he's collecting Social Security too. So yeah, he's a hypocrite. If he
Yep, he's a hypocrite, and just wait, till this election's over. There'll probably be a Bernie Sanders movie or a Bernie Sanders TV show. The Larry David will get to do like maybe a full-length movie where he does like funny Bernie Sanders impressions and things like that. Bernie Sanders will be making many millions of dollars off this, and if he's not already, a member of the 1%, he will be very soon.
Yeah, I expect him to. If I don't think he's going to win the election, but after he's done here, I expect him to, go speak around the country against capitalism and make $1 million, just like Michael Moore is doing right now, just making
Yeah.
millions criticizing capitalism. So being
Yeah.
a capitalist, pretty much.
Yeah, and Michael Moore owns a lot of stocks. So there was a documentary about this called Do As I Say in like 2008, 2009, Mo, that I think you and I both saw, and it showed that Michael Moore owns many millions of dollars in his stock portfolio while he bashes capitalism. So he's a huge hypocrite. All these guys are. Did you see that funny T-shirt, Bernie is my comrade, that a libertarian entrepreneur made with like Karl Marx and Engels and Chairman Mao and Lenin and Stalin on the shirt next to Bernie Sanders' head?
Yeah, I saw that. That's pretty funny. It's accurate. He's quoting stuff from those people. He's saying that breadline is good for the economy because government should be able to ration food. And if you look at Venezuela, they can't even do that efficiently.
Yeah, and there's also videos of Bernie Sanders from the 1980s praising Fidel Castro. And Fidel Castro is a man, that imprisoned lots of Cubans, lots of freedom-loving Cubans, and he killed a lot of Cubans too in the revolution. So It's unbelievable. But his selling point, his marketing, Mo, he's left the harder part of his communism and socialism out, just like Obama did. I mean, Obama had his biography out before his first presidential term, calling the private sector the enemy and stuff. And Obama's background, he was taught by Frank Marshall Davis, who was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. So I mean, there's just who may or may not have been his father. If you look at pictures of Frank Marshall Davis lined up next to Obama, they look almost exactly alike.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's a documentary out about this. So it's anyways. Speaking of politics, Mo, just want to, we talked in the report that we released. And by the way, guys, if you haven't gotten a report, give us your email address because, Mo, we're taking down the report at the end of the month, right?
Yes. Yeah, we are.
Yeah, so give us your email address. Go to the Wall Street for Main Street website or shoot us an email, wallstreetformainstreet@gmail.com, if you still want the report and read it. We talked in December and January when we wrote the report about how we thought we were going to see, unfortunately, Trump versus Hillary. Trump, there was just so much groundswell of populism and popularity for Trump, and we thought, Hillary wouldn't get charged. Obviously, the evidence out there for Hillary is overwhelming. But I've said in other interviews on Welcome to Dystopian Places that, the people in the Department of Justice and FBI, a lot of these guys at the top, they love Hillary. They're probably friends with her. So they, especially if they're a woman lawyer, I mean, Hillary's like here in DC, Hillary's their idol. You know what's funny, Mo? I obviously joke about my dating life on this, but I'm on these dating apps, right? And there's actually all these women there that have pictures of like either with Hillary Clinton. I matched with a girl on Tinder who was like taking pictures of herself at a Hillary rally. I matched with her before I saw the picture of her with Hillary, and then as soon as I saw it, I unmatched her. But I'm seeing like all these funny comments in the dating profiles of women about like how much they love Bernie Sanders and they're volunteering for his campaign. And if you like Trump, get dumped. So that's like the new slogan around here apparently. So like and how much they love Hillary and Bernie. It's just really funny.
Yeah, I'm surprised Trump got the nomination, and I'm also surprised of the amount of support he's getting from libertarians, especially prominent libertarian voices like the guy from Freedom Radio. He liked Donald Trump. I don't know why, but
Well, Donald Trump's a pretty good businessman. He's a good marketer. I've read his books in the past. So he's good at real estate and good at marketing. He's very good at marketing, actually. He's better at marketing than anything else because he gets free advertising and he's always on TV, even before he was running for president. But I'm not surprised he won the nomination, Mo. Obviously I wrote in the report I thought he would win the nomination because he's more charismatic. He's stronger than the other. He has this perception of being stronger than the other candidates, even though his political experience isn't very good. But, having lunch with another libertarian friend of mine today, he was talking about he's libertarian. He's talking about he hates the government being involved in his business and things, and he hates taxes. And he even was bringing up how he's probably going to vote for Trump because he said, you know what? Trump can't be bought. That's what he said. He said, and that's the most important thing to him, is that Trump cannot be bought by all these corporations and special interests. So, I mean, I guess a lot of people share that. That's a pretty popular. It's a very simple and efficient explanation for why Trump's so popular. But I think it's a very, Occam's razor type of simple and efficient one.
well, I don't agree with that because the guy that's gonna run his finance for the general election used to work at Goldman Sachs, and he used to be part of George Soros's hedge fund. So
I did not know that.
yeah,
That is very
so
interesting.
yeah, so he hired a bankster to run the finance for his campaign. So I mean,
So all of them are still connected to Goldman Sachs. Ted Cruz's wife worked at Goldman Sachs. Hillary Clinton gives expensive speeches at Goldman Sachs. It's just amazing.
yeah,
They are the giant squid, man. They put their tentacles in everything.
yeah, and so definitely, I mean, Donald Trump is not in deep into the establishment compared to Hillary Clinton, but I think he's still part of the establishment in
He's I
some
think
sort of way.
Well, Donald Trump is obviously a crony capitalist because he's declared bankruptcy so many times and he's gotten out of it. So I have to give him props for figuring out how to do that. But he's also admitted though that he's hired lobbyists to get all the things done that he wants to for government programs and lowering taxes and preferential treatment stuff. So I mean, hiring lobbyists and doing all those things, that's people would say, that's how you have to do business here in the United States. But unfortunately, that's a lot of crony capitalism. And Warren Buffett, that's something that Warren Buffett does very heavily, is hire a lot of lobbyists. So do lots of corporations.
Yeah, and then just what's one final thing? I hate Hillary Clinton more than I hate Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. So, but I'm not going to vote for any I'm not going to vote for Hillary. I'm not going to vote for Donald. I definitely won't vote for Bernie. So I'll probably vote for whoever get the Libertarian nomination.
Or not vote at all. I mean, there's a good quote out there. I forget who said it, but the quote was, if you thought voting actually meant something, then if voting actually really meant something, they wouldn't allow you to vote at all. I put the quote somewhere else. This was like a couple months ago, so I don't fully remember. But I just want to thank our listeners for listening to this podcast. Obviously for the markets, gold and silver have had a great rally. There's an attempt now with a commitment of traders report to create excessive futures contracts and either slow down the rally or knock it back down. I think physical demand is still very strong though. So, as long as physical demand for metal, the cartel is going to have a tough time because there's a lot of main Wall Street money. These are smart money managers who in the past wouldn't have bought gold and gold stocks, and they're starting to move into them. Lots of money. So I think the sentiment now is that, the stock market, it's really tough timing-wise to predict when the stock market will crash. At some point, maybe it will. Maybe it won't crash for a long period of time because maybe the government will come back in and do another quantitative easing or something like that. But there's a lot of people that have made money in stocks since 2009, and they're taking money out of the stock market and other markets they've made money in, and they're looking to put it in more undervalued markets, and that's in gold and silver.
Yep, and gold and silver had done very well lately, but right now it's taking a breather. It's gone a little sideways now. I mean, can't expect it to go up every day. I know people want that to happen after waiting 3 years for the prices to go back up, but it looks like it's going to go sideways for a little bit before it starts another uptrend sometime this year.
Yeah, and that's on a dip, if you don't have a position already in physical metal or you don't have enough, it's time to start a position. If you're thinking of buying gold stocks, buying them on dips is not a bad idea. Starting a position. Do not buy all of your position at once. This is a common mistake. I hear this all the time. My libertarian friend who I had lunch with today, he told me he chased the silver price higher in 2011. He put he did not buy his position in chunks. People, it's natural human nature to see a market going up and put more money into it and expect it to keep going up because, it's linear. That's the way humans think in general. Unfortunately, we're not normally rational creatures. We oscillate between greed and fear for the most part, and we tend to have linear thinking. But the best way as an investor is to remain calm, try to keep your emotions in check, and maintain rational thinking. And if you're going to be a long-term investor, buying it cheaper, stocks and precious metals and things like that, buying investments cheap are the only thing human beings normally don't do. Being a value investor is mentally difficult for human beings. Mo, when clothes are on sale or restaurant you like is having a special deal or something like that, or vacations are on sale, people will go out there and buy those things, no questions asked, right? Oh, I got a good deal on it, right? Yep. But when stocks or investments go on sale, people are very apprehensive to buy it, even if the company's in no danger of bankruptcy or anything like that, or the investment. You run the numbers and the investment still looks good. People are scared because it's going down.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, people apply, bargain hunting and shopping, but they can't do it in the stock market or anywhere else where they can produce any income because it requires a lot more work and it's a little bit harder, to be honest, than compared to clothes shopping. So yeah, I mean, people put a little bit more time and homework into, bargain hunting for investment so they can secure their future and retirement. They'll be better off.
Yeah, and if you want to learn how to be a value investor, there's books we could recommend to read. This is something we would do with our educational consulting clients. We would teach you how to be a value investor, what value investing books to read, and things like that. How to do research and find undervalued markets, etc., etc. Anyways, though, guys, I think that's it for today. Just want to thank you guys. We're almost to 1.6 million views on our YouTube channel. Probably in the next couple weeks, we'll be over there. We're doing around 100,000 views per month. It's pretty crazy. We're going to the Google office in DC next Friday. So thanks to you guys. We're going to that YouTube creators event all day. Hopefully they'll help us make even more money monetizing our channel and help us grow our channel and get the word out about what's really going on in the economy and how to become a better investor and become, maybe add entrepreneurship. And we're going to keep looking for good podcast guests. We're going to try to get more entrepreneurs on. It's tough to get the technology guys on. We'll still keep trying. I'm trying to get the Bitgold guy, the co-founder of Bitgold, Josh Crum. It's the 1-year anniversary of Bitgold now, and they already have 1 million customers. So we're going to have him on to ask about how Bitgold's doing. And Mo, anything else you want to add before we let our listeners go?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned getting technology people on for a podcast. We're also trying to get entrepreneurs on for a podcast. A couple weeks ago, I had Carol Ross come on for a podcast. She's a successful entrepreneur, and now she has her own TV show on TBS. If you want to check that out. So we're trying to get more people outside of the commodity sector to try to come on and educate us and inform us on what's going on in the business world and the entrepreneur world and the technology world. And also, our podcast is also on iTunes and Stitcher. And if you have that, go ahead and uh, follow our channel and also give us a review and a rating too, because that will help us increase our exposure as well. And we also have a contest going out there. I sent out a mass email a month ago that people go on iTunes or Stitcher, leave a review, you email it to us, and you become eligible to win a free silver coin. And we're not giving out just one, we're going to give out 6. So, there's a good chance that you could win one if you submit a review to us. So, yeah, that's all I have.
Well, I just want to thank everyone again for listening, and we're going to keep doing our best to improve the podcast. And if you guys want to give us a donation in either Bitgold or Bitcoin, or fiat, the links are on our website, right, Mo?
Yep. We have a PayPal donate button on our website and a Bitcoin donate button. We just set up an account with Bitgold. So if you want to donate Bitgold to us, I think we have to wait for that because they're still trying to get the regulation sorted out for giving gold to people within the U.S. Is that right?
Yeah, they're in the process. Well, actually, I think they can pay their dollars and transact in gold and send it to us. I think the thing that Bitgold's getting done, not to get off topic here real quick, Bitgold's working on the ability for people to send gold from one person to another in the U.S. and also to send invoices in gold.
Okay.
So people can pay in gold. So but people, if they can go to what's our account at Bitgold? Is it Wall Street for Main Street at Gmail?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so I think they can just go to the Bitgold website and look up our put it on their email address and send us there if they want to make a donation there. So we're gonna keep cranking out the good content as news stories come unfold. The one thing, like I said, guys, in the report, if you did read, I want to remind you guys, there's going to be a lot of volatility in these markets. So the oil market has had a really nice rally. We might have a really nice, really painful pullback here. There's going to be a lot of volatility in all these different markets. Markets are going to go up and down a lot. If you can't stomach volatility in a lot of these markets, there's ways to protect yourself with hedges, with options and ETFs that go contra, that go inverse to long positions and things like that we could help our consulting clients set up. But then if you can't stomach any of this volatility at all, you should be in cash. A certain amount of cash outside of the banking system, maybe a certain amount to protect yourself from bail-ins, and you should have physical precious metal. You should be accumulating maybe a couple silver coins a month or something like that, or a couple gold grams a month on Bitgold if that's all you can afford. Or on a Silver Saver. Silver Saver actually has which is David Morgan's program. They actually have a good Silver 123 program where they could take a certain amount of money out of your checking account each month automatically and buy a certain, like $50 of gold or $50 of silver each month.
Okay, so until next time, thank you, everybody.